Why do so many opinions seem to shift based on stuff that's not from actual games that these players play?
It's college to pro, Dan. That's what makes it so difficult. You're seeing guys play in college against players who will not be in the National Football League. So you're not getting apples to apples. And some games, you want to watch an offensive tackle, but the defensive end's going on the right side or left side, opposite where the player you want the one-on-one to be. So you get little snippets, okay, snapshots here and there of a player against another great player. That's why Senior Bowl practices are so important, because you're getting good on good. You don't get that in college on a regular basis. So a lot of times the stats can be skewed one way. He can have great numbers against, I call them AOGs, Dan, another occupation guys. That's what they are. They're AOGs. That's what you go up against in college. I coined that phrase years ago. That's what it is, because that's college football. That's the same thing when you talk about high school. It's tough to go from one level to the next and be accurate with your evaluation. So when you end the day, it's over evaluation too, because you're talking about so much time between the end of the season till late April that you do kind of overthink it. And you do factor in things that maybe shouldn't be as heavily weighed because it's so much time, and it is level to a different level. And you have to look at everything possible to try to make a good evaluation. And certainly, Dan, a lot of scouts believe, and general managers later in the draft, take the talented kids. Bill Napoleon, Hall of Famer, always told me, Mel, take the talented guys later in the draft. The guys are, I'll call them underachievers, Dan, but they have a big-time skill set, and for one reason or another, they got dinged in the process a bit. Take those kind of guys in the 5th, 6th, 7th round, or bring them in as undrafted free agents.
How do you grade Travis Hunter, considering there's two positions?
It's a hard decision on wide receiver and corner when you have other players that are fully invested in that one spot. So you say, okay, Travis didn't play just wide receiver. He didn't play just corner. He was out there every play, every snap. That, to me, prevents him from being as good at one or the other that he could be. So even with that said, Dan, he's my number one wide receiver and he's my number one corner. And it's amazing if he would just focus on one position, how great he could be. So to me, Travis is as unique as any player in the history of the draft because he is going to play both ways right away. Deion said it perfectly. You're not going to have a drive at the end of the first half or a drive in the fourth quarter or two drives in the fourth quarter, settling that game, that outcome, and have Travis Hunter standing on the sidelines when our cornerbacks are getting beaten, the quarterback's driving his team right down the field against my defense. You can't have that. So Deion is perfectly correct. He's 1,000% correct on that. This kid's got to play both ways.
Do you love or love Shedeur Sanders?
Really love Shedeur Sanders. I tried to be loyal to what, like I said, August, and what I thought throughout their careers. And I understand if you want, Dan, somebody who looks the part. I call them LTPers. That's what they are. They're LTPers. There's a couple other guys at that position that are more physically gifted, okay? When I talk about arm strength, when I talk about just imposing size, the rocket arm, the 4.6 speed, there are other quarterbacks that have that, Dan. If you want that, take those guys. If you want a kid who can just surgically take a team down the field, pick you apart, see things, recognize things, diagnose, make decisions that are sound, also get the ball to accurate points and precise points to a receiver, and hang in tough in that pocket, take hits, and keep getting up. Don't point fingers. Don't assign blame. Win football games. He didn't have a running game for 2 years at Colorado, Dan. His leading rusher, I've said it for the last month, his leading rusher the last 2 years, the two top running backs in this draft, Ginty and Hampton, would have had more yards in a game and a half than they had the whole year. Think about that. And the offensive line, Dan, you saw that offensive line. That was a bad group in 2023, a little bit better in 24, but bottom line is he had no chance. And a lot of those snaps, he had no shot. So I give him a lot of credit, Dan, but if he's not the guy that you want physically and you can't reconcile taking a guy that high, I get it. But does that not mean that, hey, in the mid-late first round, he can't be a heck of a pick? And all this notion too, Dan, well, if you love them or you like them, whatever, if you just like them, you can't take them. Well, I'll give you an example. In 1984, Dan, my first year at ESPN, I had Boomer Esiason, the third highest rated player on my board. Right now, Shedeur's at 5, by the way, okay? So say Shedeur goes in the late first. He goes in the second. What an idiot Kiper is, right? He had Shedeur. Well, guess what? Boomer was 3. Bengals had 3 picks in the first round, Dan. I'm sitting there first year at ESPN. You know what's going through my head? I'm one and done. Yeah, I'm sitting there with Chris Berman, Boomer, and Bob Lee. I'm thinking, I'm not going to be back for the 1985 draft. My third highest rated players there, and the Bengals passed him 3 times, Dan, and 2 of those 3 were busts. They took him in the second round. Now, according to that philosophy, if you didn't like him enough to take him with your first 3 picks in there, why are you taking him in the second round? He's going to be your quarterback. He's going to be the guy, whether he's the first, second rounder. He's your guy moving forward. You didn't even like him enough to take ahead of Ricky Hundley, Pete Koch, and Brian Blados. Okay, so again, I don't buy into any of that nonsense. Brett Favre was like highly rated player, went in the second round, right? Look what happened with him. Aaron Rodgers was supposed to go number 1 3 weeks before the draft and slid to 24. The 6 of the 8 sliding picks in terms of my rankings over the last, since 1970, Dan. I went all the way back to 1970. 6 of the 8 hit. 6 of the 8 sliding quarterbacks hit. So maybe Shedeur will be one of the 6 that does really well.
We're talking to Mel Kiper, draft expert, 42nd NFL draft. And you can see ESPN with every pick there. That'll be Thursday through Saturday. It'll be Mel and Field Yates, Mike Greenberg, the First Draft podcast as well with Mel Kiper. Help me understand this, that I know we get it, we fall in love with quarterbacks. But if I say to a team, that guy right there that you're going to take, it's not a quarterback, but he's going to be a future Hall of Famer. But instead, you'll roll the dice on Cam Ward. And Cam can be, maybe he's a Hall of Famer, but if you said Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, there's a couple of guys in here that you go, chances are they could be the safest pick and be a future Hall of Famer, but we're going to roll the dice on Cam Ward. Explain the logic there at the top of the draft.
It's arm talent, Dan. It's the traits. It's that skill set that Brian Callahan, I listened to an interview with Brian Callahan, and he said, I want a quarterback that when everybody in the stadium knows we're throwing a ball, can throw the ball and deliver a pass and complete it. I want a guy that's wired right. I want a guy that certainly, can be not just good, because he said just good. Just good's not good enough, Dan. It's been told to us. Listen to what they're saying. I don't want to go that's just good. They want Joe Burrow. They want Jaden Daniels. He mentioned Joe Burrow and Jaden Daniels in an interview. That's what he's shooting for. He's not shooting. I said this for the last couple of years, Dan. The singles and double days for quarterbacks are over. This is, and maybe even a triple. You want a grand slam or a home run, or you don't want that guy, Dan. So what they're doing now is they're just taking shots. They're taking shots. If my guy's not a triple double or triple home run or grand slam, he's just a double or single, just good, then I got to get better. And the one phrase that came out of everybody's mouth this last couple of years is, I want my quarterback to play at a consistently high level. Well, you're looking at great then, right?
Yeah.
Consistently high level. Who does that? Dan Patrick does it every day because he's a Hall of Famer. Bottom line is, these quarterbacks do it every day. Consistently high level, Dan. And that's where, again, you look at what we're doing here. If we got a quarterback and we think he can be good, but we got to get better. This kid has the arm talent. Shedeur Sanders doesn't have the rocket arm, doesn't have the 4.6 speed, and isn't 6'3", 230. Cam Ward has the rocket arm, has maneuverability and creativity. The GM was with Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes has a lot of creativity and a live arm. They all see a little bit elements of the quarterback they were with the quarterback they're going to select. And I think they see some elements there of what Mahomes does to the way Cam Ward does. Shedeur doesn't do it that way. That's why Cam Ward goes number 1.
But are you sure? Are you sure that Cam Ward is going to be more successful or as successful as Travis Hunter?
No. I don't think anybody can be sure of quarterbacks.
So why not take that guy? That's a generational talent there. This is what I don't understand.
Well, you can't. You have to have. It's the most important position in all sports, is quarterback in the NFL. Okay, so you got to keep taking chances. I always say, if you don't have that quarterback, Dan, you're spinning your wheels. They got Joe Burrow in Cincinnati. They didn't make the playoffs. Okay. So you can have all these pieces. That's what they said, and I was a big Trent Dilfer supporter. Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl, ironically, here in Baltimore, right? My hometown, born and raised in Baltimore. Ironic how it all came full circle for me, Dan. But people said, well, you needed everything around. They let Trent Dilfer go. They cut him loose the next year for Elvis Gerback. They wanted to get better. Okay. They felt like, okay, we need everything around Trent, but he galvanized that team. He was the true leader. He was the difference maker in that team. They were going nowhere until Trent took over that year. Okay. And he led them to all those wins, but it wasn't good enough even then. Think about that. That was a long time ago. It wasn't even good enough then. They had a Super Bowl winning quarterback. They kicked him to the curb to try to get better. This thought process, Dan, has been going on a long time. The good isn't good enough at the quarterback position in the NFL.
I need you got to pace yourself because you got to get ready for Thursday here, Mel. I mean, you're in first round mode right now.
I don't know about that, Dan. The voice always goes by. You're right. By Thursday, I get all fired up this week, and you start yelling and screaming. And by Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, you got nothing left. So I'm with you. But hey, Dan, I could listen to you say pace it. I've been listening to you say pace it for about how many years, Dan? We've been together. And do I ever, Dan, listen to Dan Patrick?
I know. I think it's interesting though that your mock draft is saying this is your potential. This is how you grade them, not what the philosophy is of the teams. Is that correct?
Well, philosophy on positions. Like I say, don't take a running back in the first, but I'm not going to grade a kid like Ashton Genty or Amarian Hampton from North Carolina and put him as my 65th player because I don't agree with taking a running back in the first. You grade them based on their ability, and that's why all those running backs were rated high.
Yeah.
I have a philosophy that people said was idiotic, Dan, and now they're all agreeing with it. They all agree with it. Now, notice that, how that's come full circle, too? They all said I was a nut. Now they say, you shouldn't really draft a running back in the first round unless you're one of those great teams that just is missing the running back or that team on the cusp that's just missing a running back. Tell me a team, Dan, in the top 10 right now doesn't think they're going to be a pretty good team this coming year. Tell me a team that thinks they're going to be picking first next year. Tell me a team going into this coming season and thinks, we're going to be the worst team in the league next year. Tell me a coach in that building or a player in that building or a GM or an owner that believes that. Okay, so to me, look at Tennessee. They were within a whisker last year of beating Chicago opening week, of beating the Jets the second week. They ended up beating Houston. They had a lot of games where just a mistake here or a block that wasn't made or a drop pass, whatever it may, or a penalty or whatever, or an interception, a turnover. So again, this is a fine line, Dan. Washington went from being a team that was nothing to being, because they had hit with Jaden Daniels, and that tells you what we talk about at quarterback. They hit with Jaden Daniels, and now look where they are. Now look at the future of the Washington Commanders, right? I give Cincinnati, hey, you get a mulligan with Joe Burrow. You're not getting 2 years with Joe Burrow where you don't make the playoffs. You got an MVP quarterback, you better get in the playoffs. Like I said, I'll give you 1 year. I'm not going to give you 2. So once you get that guy, you better win consistently.
Do you regret not being a GM in the NFL?
Not at all, Dan. No, I had that chance to get into the league when probably the best friend I ever had in the NFL were you think about Ernie Accorsi, general manager, who was going to bring me in at age 23. Before I came to ESPN, Dan, he offered me the position to come work for him, just do whatever, not as an assistant GM like some have, erroneously said. It was just to be his assistant. As a young kid coming in, if I need Kiper to go wherever, I'll send them. If I need him to find out something, and I said, great. I said, what do you want me to do? He said, just keep going through the 83 draft. We'll announce you in July. I had the NFL security come down and interview and go through all the process to be accepted in and all that. So it was all going to happen in July. Ernie had drafted John Elway. Without his knowledge, John Elway was traded to Denver. There was talk about the Colts leaving town. Ernie would obviously be leaving as well. He wasn't going to bring me in as his guy, knowing the future was so uncertain for him with this organization. He called me in June, Dan, and he said, Mel, I can't bring you in. I said, okay, what do you want me to do? He said, hey, nobody knows that I was going to do this. It hasn't been announced to anybody. You got a great business going. Keep doing what you're doing. Everybody craves that type of information. Keep doing what you're doing. I did, and guess what? 5 months later, I got a call from ESPN to come up and interview for the job. Got that, started in 1984. So without Ernie caring about a 23-year-old kid, and he would have just brought me in, I'd have been with the Colts, hit a left, I'd have been gone at some point. ESPN would have had another draft analyst, and I don't know what the heck I'd be doing right now, Dan.
But that leads me to what happened with Brent Musburger. I campaigned for him. I reached out to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, the Pete Rozelle Award. I'd like to do the same with you. I think you should be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
I appreciate that, Dan, but I just believe there's so many people that you're fortunate, you get a little luck on your side, you're around great people. I worked with you all those years.
You changed an industry. What you have meant to the NFL it's a different version of John Facenda. Like, he was the voice. And you were the draft guy. Like, look at what it's a cottage industry that you created. That is contributions to the game. I know you're modest. I don't care. I'm going forward with it. You deserve to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. You do.
Dan, you're a great friend. Andy Poland's been saying the same thing. I tell Andy the same thing. Andy. And he said he's going to – I said, to me, you get into this and you see so many people that were responsible at ESPN for what's happened. So you say, I did this. ESPN really did it, Dan, because they televised this thing when the NFL didn't want it to be televised. Think about that. Think about all the great producers that work, from Bill Fitz, who offered me that position in '84, all the way up, John Wildhack. You think about what he did. Freddie Godelli, Freddie Godelli was able to coach me along and teach me so many things about this business. Jay Rothman, Brian Ryder now, Rob Adamski, all the great producers.
Wait, you're giving your Hall of Fame speech. Wait.
Seth Markman is believing in me all these years. Seth has been a great friend. So all the ESPN guys, Dan, they were responsible. All the people that cut those highlight packages, all that work behind, they were responsible for the draft success. Keep in mind, Dan, ESPN televised draft before I got here. Okay, so the draft was on ESPN before I became a part of the telecast. Okay,
you changed it. You changed
well,
it.
I appreciate that, but for John Facenda, what you just said, the voice, that voice, Dan, pulled people into the NFL.
You're the hair. He's the voice, Mel.
Well, it's funny. My great friend, you'll make great friends, George Young, right? Late great George Young, Calvert Hall's own George Young, famous graduate of Calvert Hall history. Great friend of mine. He used to write me handwritten notes after he got the book on suggestions and just thoughts. He'd call me during the draft even and get me to tell him his opinion of what went on. George Young always said couple things he said. First of all, when you draft a player is just as important as who you select. So value is important. He said to me when I started at ESPN, you got to get a voice coach, Mel. You got to get that Baltimore accent out of that. You got to lose that Baltimore accent. So George, I said, George, I'm not going to change it. Whatever I am, I am. If it doesn't resonate and his voice isn't getting done, I can't change my voice. George, you got to get that Baltimore accent and lose it. You're never going to have any chance. So it was funny, all the conversations I look back with George and like Ernie Accorsi, my great friend Jack Faulkner with the Rams was phenomenal back in the day. All the way through my career between Jack, Ernie, George.
Save it for your Hall of Fame speech. Save it for your Hall of Fame speech. No, Save it.
Yeah, I would say, Dan, give that up. I got a lot of people in the league that hate me. You know, I got a lot of people in the league hate me and have hated me for a long time. I do not think anything NFL related to the Hall of Fame will ever that will never work hand in hand, Dan. No.
I'd say pace yourself, but you're not capable. And good to talk to you as always. We'll see you in Green Bay. Dan. Thank you, Mel.
I appreciate it, pal. Take care, buddy.